Okay, today we've got another small-sided game for you. The objective today is playing through the thirds and breaking lines. Before we get into the drill, if you haven't subscribed already, please do click the subscribe button just to make sure you don't miss any videos in the future. So as we said, we are working on playing through the thirds today. So in terms of setup, we're going to use, or I've used for this, a 15 width, 35 length area. You can play about with that. However you deem the size of the pitch to be is up to you. Like I've said in previous videos, don't get too precious about size. If you feel like the objective of the drill is not landing and you need to make it bigger so the players have got more confidence, make sure you do that. Then that way, once the players have got the objective of the drill, you can make the pitch smaller, reduce the size of the pitch and make it more challenging for them as the session progresses. What you don't want to do is make the pitch so small that the players just can't get away what you want them to land in the session. There's a lot of... it's very popular at the moment to play in small spaces and make playing conditions very tight when it's not actually hugely game realistic because we play on a large pitch. But that said, I do get the benefit of challenging your players as much as possible, but the main thing is that they are able to, skill-wise, land the objective of the session. We're also going to split this into thirds, so you can see the pitch is split into thirds there, and the players are going to be locked into those zones. And then we've obviously got a goal at each end, so it's a directional game. We're trying to score in the goal, in the direction that we're facing. So the whites are shooting towards the green goalkeeper, the blues are shooting towards the yellow goalkeeper. So in terms of instructions, like we said, it is a directional game. So we are shooting in one direction as we would do on a match day. Players are locked into their zones. So you'll see in each final third, we've got one striker here in blue and two whites as defenders. And it would be the reverse at the opposite end. So it would be one white striker and two blue defenders. And then in the middle section, I've got a 3v3 in midfield here. Obviously, depending on how many players you've got for the session, that could be a 2v2, it could be a 4v4, it could be an overload in there. The session I did last night was an overload, so I had a 3v2 in there. And you could just swap that overload around as the session progresses. And the reason why we're locking them in the thirds is because we want to really land the objective of playing through the thirds. Now, it's really key to this drill, actually, that I make sure I land the point that you don't have to play through the thirds in order. We are locking the players into their zones so they see the importance of breaking lines and playing through the thirds. But we can go from the defensive zone straight into the attacking zone if we want to and miss the midfield out, because that would be the deepest pass and that would be the most effective pass. But we want to do it in as relatively low risk scenario as we can do. So in terms of conditions, before we get into the coaching points, so we haven't got lots of conditions on this game, but we have got a one-touch finish. Again, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to do it. I love to do it because, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I think it's around 70% of Premier League goals are scored with a one-touch finish in that second 6-yard box area, so that's why we do a one-touch finish. And one or two midfielders can get in to support the striker in the final third once the ball goes into that final third zone. I would start with just one midfielder supporting the striker when the ball goes in there, so it's a 2v2. I'd then evolve it, once the session has progressed, into two midfielders being able to get forward and support that striker. One of the key objectives that we want to land here is midfield getting forward to support a striker, so we're not isolated up front. Getting bodies forward just changes the tempo and the amount of opportunities that you get in a game. So make sure you evolve it to two midfielders, getting forward to support the striker, and that will give you an overload of 3v2 versus the defenders. So we've done the setup, we've done the instructions, we're now going to look at the coaching points. So when you're thinking about what your coaching points are going to be, remember the theme of the session and the objective of the session. What were we trying to get out of this drill, this part of the session? For me, we're looking to break lines, we're looking to get through the thirds of the pitch, and we're looking to progress through the thirds. Now, when I think about the things that we need to do that, we need to, one, make sure we're trying to pass forwards as much as we can. So when I receive the ball, am I trying to look forwards first, or have I got my head down and I'm going sideways backwards because I'm just trying to get rid of the ball as soon as possible? are players receiving the ball, opening up, getting their head up, and even scanning previous to that as well? So there's two elements to that. One, have they scanned before they've received the ball? So have they checked where the space is, where the next pass is going to be? And two, once they've received the ball, have they received the ball with an open body so they can play forward straight away? And are they looking forwards with that intent to play forwards as well? So we've spoken about the deepest pass being the best pass a few times. And it's an interesting topic because we live in an age now where passing, short passes are king, it seems, and the tiki-taka possession-based football is extremely popular. And you associate with that possession-based football shorter passes and a lot more sideways and backwards-looking passes just to keep the ball for the sake of keeping possession. Now, we have to ingrain into our players that the deepest pass is the most effective one. So even if we're looking to play out from the back, the goalkeeper going straight to the striker is the most effective way of playing out from the back. So with that example in mind, when we receive the ball, just so we can see in the animation there, we've gone straight from the defensive third straight into the striker because there was a passing lane available. Now, the immediate impact of that is that we're in the opponent's final third, they're taking risks, they're in a bit of trouble, and we can get forward and at least have an opportunity to strike on goal, but we've scored a goal in this instance. It'd be very easy for that player that made that decision to play directly into the final third, to play into midfield, maybe bounce a pass, bounce a wall pass, come out and go out the other side. But the fact that they decided to go from back to front because the passing lane was available and we could get the striker with their back to the defender in a 1v1 situation was extremely useful for us. Now, other coaching points that we might want to look at. So in the defensive third, the defenders there and the goalkeeper have really got to think about using the overload to get out. So they've got essentially a 3v1 in that area. So they should easily be able to draw the striker towards them, as I think the example shows now here in the animation. So the goalkeeper pauses on the ball, is pressed by the striker, and we can play out one side. Depending on the intensity of the press of that striker, they should be able to consistently draw the press in and have one or two options to play out. But the important thing for me in those final thirds or those defensive thirds is not the ease that they do it, it's their intent to do it and the thinking process of the player to actually put their foot on the ball if needed and draw the press in so they can go out the other side. Now into midfield, as we haven't got an overload in midfield, it's a 3v3 battle, it's a relatively small part of the pitch. And do you know what, it's really game realistic because on a match day, most teams will play a midfield three, so you generally have got a man-for-man 3-on-3 battle in the midfield area. So one thing we really want to get the players to do is rotation of position. So it's that unselfish movement. It's can I spin out and go the opposite direction to enable my teammate to move into the space that I've just vacated? And that's the rotation movement that we need to be able to create space. So imagine every time you exit a position, your man or your player is going to follow you. So your opponent is going to follow you. So that creates space for someone to enter. So that constant flow of movement is really, really important. What I also want you to ask your midfielders to think about is, are they blocking the passing lane into the striker? As we've previously spoken about, that ball that goes from the defensive third into the final third is a really, really powerful one. Are we all just coming to the ball and blocking the progression of the player on the ball in the defensive third? Or are we scanning over our shoulder, seeing the position of the striker? And are we opening up a passing lane for them to be able to receive the ball? Then we can spin and go and support the striker. And we also want them to think about, on that spin and support, is are they at the right tempo and at the right pace? Are they getting forward to support that striker? Or are you having to remind them that an extra player can get in there? Have they got the correct intensity to think about where that passing lane is into the striker? Right, as soon as that ball's played, I'm off to support. You'll see the difference in effectiveness from going from one player supporting the striker to two players supporting the striker and the amount of additional opportunities that creates. That transition to go from maybe a defensive mindset to then getting on the ball to then getting up to support in the final third is a really important one. And if we can embed that in our players, you'll get so many more chances just by getting bodies in higher positions on the pitch. We also want to think about, in that tight area in the middle of the park, can we receive on the back foot? Now, have a think about what benefit does that give us to receive on the back foot. It means we can get turned. So if we have got the space, and this is where communication is really, really important. We'll come on to that in a second. But if I've been told time, turn, I've got the correct call, am I then taking the correct touch off the communication I've just been given? So if someone's told me time, turn, have I taken a touch back towards my own goal and then delayed and allowed the opposition to get back in? Or have I took a touch as I'd want them to on the turn, on the back foot? So then my next movement and my next thought process is forward, and I'm thinking forward because my movement and my touch has allowed me to do so. Now, we mentioned communication there as well. I don't think communication gets spoken about in a training or a coaching sense as much, but effective communication is so important. So as a coach, have a think about what sort of information are your players giving the other players, and can that be improved? Think about the communication that you're giving your players. Is that being replicated around the pitch? Are they being told time, man on? Are they communicating where the space is on the pitch and where the next pass should go? All of these things are really, really important. There's always something to say on a football pitch, and there's always a little bit of communication to give, no matter where you are on the pitch. And the last thing I want you to think about, and I did mention this earlier actually, was unselfish movement and third-person runs. So no movement is a wasted movement. So too many players will stand still and wait for their teammates or their opponents to impact the game. If you can get forward, make those rotations, make an unselfish run into the box to support the striker, make a third person overlapping run. The level of extra things that gives the defenders to think about is so much that it creates a lot more chances. So those unselfish movements, those unselfish runs, although the players might not be receiving the ball every single time, are extremely important. So, one, make sure we're asking our players to do that, and two, make sure we're rewarding the players for doing that as well. Okay, brilliant. That's our drill for today. I hope you really enjoyed that. Objective, remember, is playing through the thirds and breaking lines, getting into forward positions and playing forward. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. It really helps. Enjoy and let me know what you think. Thank you.